What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the Lights Out Fantasy Football video podcast. It's weird saying welcome back because we haven't done a video one yet. This is actually the first live show that we've done on the show. I've been looking forward to this all week. I've been talking to myself, looking into my computer screen, talking into the mic myself the entire week. But today I am joined, as I will be. I have my co-host, Joe Holka, here with me. Joe is from 4for4.com. He's also does work for Fantasy Labs. He's been featured on Roto World. Joe, what's going on, man?
Hey, it's going good, Mike. We've been talking about doing this for a while, and we weren't sure if it was going to be this year, if it was going to be next year, but I'm glad we kind of jumped the gun here and got things started about halfway through the year. You've done a great job on the solo pod so far, so these are going to be fun on Fridays.
No, I appreciate it, man. That solo pod has been taxing on my voice. My throat is like about had it. But fortunately for me, I got all my research done on Thursday. I'm able to just focus on lineups and things like that. But yeah, you're right. We have been talking about this for a while. And fortunately, our weekly guest that's going to be joining us is Jake Ciely. And Jake is from rotoexperts.com. He's also from Fantasy Sports Network. I've known Jake for a while, and I've thrown Jake's name out there a few times before, basically saying that Jake invited me to my first big fantasy event when I didn't really know anybody. So I definitely have him to thank for that. Jake, what's going on, buddy?
Not too much. Everybody always thank me for everything I do for them. That's the only right way to do it.
Well, no, it's funny. So if you guys don't know Jake, this is going to be a good show. And the reason I say it's going to be a good show is because Jake is not afraid to prop himself up. I think that's the best way to put it. Jake loves him some me. It's the whole T.O. Love me some me. There he is. Yeah, no, if you guys didn't know, a lot of people do know Jake because he has finished as a top 4 expert in the Fantasy Pros accuracy rankings competition. So he's like a freak. I finished top 6 twice, and I don't even know how he's done it, honestly. But no, we're here to talk some DFS today, boys. That's what we're going to do. I just wanted to outline you guys what we're going to do in this show. We're going to talk just like I do on the solo podcast. We are going to talk about process over results because anybody can really walk out there and say, hey, I like this player, play him. And that's boring. We want to give you a reason to play him. We want you to understand the process. That way, you're not mad at us when, your lineup fails. No, it's going to do well. We're going to make a lineup towards the end of the show. We're going to talk about all the players that we like. If you have any questions, make sure to direct them to us on Twitter. I think you guys all know where that is. If not, direct it to our publicists. Jake, I think, has one. You do, right?
I'm working on that.
Working on it. He's getting pretty big, this guy. He topped 20,000 followers the other day, and I feel minuscule compared.
The other day? I'm up to 27 now. Get it right, man.
27 now?
Share the wealth, man.
Are you buying followers now, Jake?
No. It's that Fantasy Pros. They just spill over from that. That's actually, honestly, that's where I get the majority from. Is they tweet out there like, "Oh, the top 5," and it's just like, boom, everybody just starts coming over.
That's true, and then we lose them all in the off season, and they come back. But
I start talking baseball. Nobody wants to listen to me.
No, I don't want to listen to baseball. We're here to talk football. Actually,
exactly.
Yeah, this is going to be primarily a DraftKings show, and that's basically because I live in Arizona, and FanDuel, I can't even get on their site to look at their pricing. So if you guys have any questions in between today's show and then on Sunday, I do the live show, the Lights Out live show, where we talk about DFS. We talk about season long. That is on Twitch. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. Obviously, you guys know I post it there. But before we get into talking about the players that we like, we're going to do this every single week. So this is going to be Joe's time to shine. Joe, all he does is study DFS. I still do some seasonal. I know Jake does, but Joe is solely on DFS. So he studies game selection. Joe, do you want to talk about what game selection is and why it's so important?
Yeah, first off, we talk about Arizona. I'm actually from there and moved to Minnesota after I was done playing hockey. That's a whole nother story, but that shows you what kind of degenerate I am. I haven't moved back home. I moved to Minnesota where I could play DFS, but we're going to talk about process quite a bit in this podcast, and I think one of the most overlooked things is definitely game selection for a lot of people. I know the majority of people are playing probably 80% cash games, 20% GPPs, but what kind of GPPs are you playing? Are you playing the large field GPPs where you're going to kind of play that exposure game with quite a few lineups, or are you going to go up in stakes a little bit and play against a smaller field and maybe roll out only a few lineups? So it's a big difference kind of on your game selection. Obviously in DFS, we're going to separate into two main categories. Like I said, cash games and tournaments or GPPs. So each type is definitely unique. The payout structure and kind of your lineup building strategy, like as a whole, is going to be completely different. So the majority of cash games are going to be your 50-50s and your head-to-heads. 50-50s, you just have to place in the top half, and head-to-heads, you're obviously just playing against one person. So GPPs, those large field, the payout structure is going to be, most of the money is going to be up top. So you really want to put yourself in a position to kind of differentiate yourself and have a chance to finish high with a higher ceiling. So personally, in cash games, I just play head-to-heads. I like to kind of spread out my variance among my opponents as I'm just rolling out one cash game lineup per slate. So I play a large volume of those each week and then kind of differentiate my GPPs depending on kind of where the week's at. It does change a lot as far as the prize pools, the percent of the field that cashes. And each week, those are different. So that's one of the first things I do is go through the tournaments for the week, see where the value is going to be, and then kind of just go from there. And I play kind of those smaller field ones quite a bit lately, just because there's a lot of volume there. As far as I think that sometimes just a nice pivot is almost better than being completely contrarian, especially in a year where the chalk has done really well. So yeah, I actually kind of want to get Jake's take. Like, what's your weekly game mix like right now?
Well, generally, it's pretty much what I try to be. It's what I try to treat every single week as is 10% tournament. Everything else is cash. Everything else is, I don't do mostly head-to-heads just because I don't really want people playing me. I don't want people searching me out, and it's not because I'm afraid of them. It's just I don't want to give anybody I picked this guy over this guy, and that's going to sound conceited, but it's not. It's the same reason why I don't join people for their seasonal leagues. I just don't want to be selective or that type of stuff. And I know you can just randomly pick head-to-head, but I just rather stick to what I'm comfortable with, and what I'm most comfortable with is playing smaller size 50-50s. I don't like the multi-entry. I like the single entry. I don't like the giant pools because at that point you might as well just play a tournament. So I basically play about 10 to 20 cash, and then there's 1, 2, 3 tournament lineups in there, and that's pretty much how I've always treated it, as 10% for his tournament. And that, I'm sure you agree, that's how you build a bankroll, just like we do when playing poker, and that's where my background comes from. You don't go to Vegas and build your poker bankroll by playing in the World Series of Poker as your only option. That's just not the smart way to do it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Now, real quick, guys. So a lot of people have asked me on Twitter, and I don't want to make anybody feel dumb for asking. So that's why I wanted to line it out. Just tell you guys, cash games, when we talk about cash, that means you're talking about games that if you're in the top half, you're winning. That's basically what it comes down to. GPPs and tournaments, you guys know what that is. So, Joe, is there any certain tournaments that people should target this week playing FanDuel or DraftKings that you would just point to real quick?
Yeah, there's some tournaments on DraftKings. It's actually a completely different week than normal because DraftKings is doing their mid-season GPP series. So there's actually 3 GPPs with a prize pool of at least $1 million. So it's kind of a strange week. Like a lot of the normal tournaments we would play have a kind of a decrease in their guaranteed prize pools. I really like the slant on most weeks. That's the $9 multi-entry. It's not a huge field, but there actually is a decent amount of money, but it's more of a flatter payout structure. But this week in particular, I'm looking at the $4, one of those celebration tournaments. It's $100K to first, and 27% of the field is being paid out, but just 5% is going to first. So it's relatively flat. I think you do want to look for more of a flat payout structure because the odds of finishing in the top 2 or 3 out of sometimes 500,000 people is just not very good. So I like those flatter ones. Going up in stakes, I do really like those 3 entry max. The $150 power sweep has a really nice flat payout structure as well with a decent amount of money in the prize pool. So that would be my high stakes tournament. On FanDuel, I'm playing some of those tournaments, the Monster and the Blitz. That's the $100 and the $300 entry, but both the fields are under 3,000 people. So those are the ones I like to target on FanDuel. If I'm going to kind of play the multi-entry type game, I think there's more value on some of the DraftKings ones, at least this week. So some of those smaller ones that I was talking about before.
Gotcha. And that's the thing. It's important, guys. If you're just starting out, it's not really going to mean too much to you. But if you're an experienced DFS player and you're looking for certain tournaments, that's what he does. A free shout out to roster coach TJ Hernandez, friend of us. He runs a website and kind of goes through that every single week, talking about game selection. If you want a more in-depth view on that. But now we're going to start talking about the players. This is the exciting part. This is what we all come here for, right? This is what we love to do. Jake, we're gonna have this part of the show every single week. We're gonna do Jake's ace of the week. And the reason I say ace of the week is because, as we talked about, Jake is a top 4 expert. He knows what he's doing. He's done it consistently. So every single week, we're gonna ask him which player that he wants in every single lineup, whether it be cash or tournament play. This week, I tend to think it's probably going to be a little predictive. But go ahead, Jake. Who you got for us?
No, it's not David Johnson, so I don't know how predictive it is. I think that's too obvious.
I like it.
So basically, I should probably tell people that I don't end up using. Is that what you're getting at here? Is so like I can keep mine in my back pocket?
No, don't do that.
I wouldn't do that to people because honestly, I think the must-have. This is the first person. Actually, if I don't start with David Johnson, which I pretty much have in a lot of my lineups, the very next person I've started every single lineup with is Tyrell Williams. And I'm looking at Tyrell Williams. And if you look at his last 5 games, the 2 down games where people are going to focus on, they're going to say, "Oh, well, he's very volatile. He's up and down every single week." Well, guess what? Those 2 weeks were against the Broncos. God forbid we give somebody a pass for facing the Broncos. He's become their number 1 option. Talking about the Chargers, you look at his price on DraftKings and FanDuel, $5,700 on DraftKings, $5,900 on FanDuel, which are both just insane prices for somebody who is a number 1 wide receiver. If you want to talk about seasonal, I haven't ranked this on my top 15 this week for the matchup because if you look at the Dolphins, they've just been giving up a buku of fantasy points per game. I know they've been starting to play a little bit better, which is strange because they've lost more pieces over the last couple of weeks and they've improved, similar to what we thought the Colts would at the beginning of the season. It's like, oh, they already stink, and now they're losing all these guys. They're going to be even worse, but they're playing better for some reason. That's kind of what we're seeing with the Dolphins, but at the same time, this is still a matchup to exploit, and I just love it there. The price, again, I see him as a potential wide receiver 1, and the price you're getting for him is it's going to be so easy for him to double his value, let alone triple or possibly quadruple.
I love it. And Travis Benjamin's going to be out for this game. There's no way they're playing him. I don't know if he's been officially ruled out, but he's not playing. One player, it's funny, I love the call, actually. In Miami, while they've been getting better, it's the run game that's kind of masking the issues on their defense because their secondary is still awful. If you guys remember that Thursday night game against A.J. Green, he basically did what he wanted against that secondary. And considering that Tyrell Williams is going to be the number 1 option with Travis Benjamin out, that frees up about 5-6 targets. He might be the Keenan Allen this week where he might see 15 targets. Like, I wouldn't put it past Phillip Rivers to target him a ton. I actually have no issue if you want to take a shot at Dontrell Inman too. Inman's been seeing more and more targets as the week goes on. I know I talked about that during the week on the podcast. So this is a good place to start. We were just talking about Rivers. Let's get into some quarterbacks, guys. We're going to touch on every position, kind of go through our favorite plays. I think that the consensus this week, I don't know what happened with the pricing algorithm, but Marcus Mariota is dirt cheap. I think he's 14th on FanDuel, I heard, and he's 16th on DraftKings. Joe, do you find any reason why Marcus Mariota shouldn't be used in cash lineups?
I love how you say that you think on FanDuel just because you can't actually see the salaries. But no, I do. I really like Marcus Mariota this week, especially in cash games. I typically am looking for a home favorite, but he is at home and he's got multiple touchdowns in 5 straight games. So against this defense that is going to be more of like a funnel defense, I think that with that point total, it's kind of a middling point total, but I think that he's going to get a chance to throw quite a bit. The spread is pretty tight, even though he's not a favorite. So I think he's going to throw a lot. He's been super efficient. And even in these past like 5 or 6 weeks, he had kind of a rough start to start the year. So I think people were kind of off him. But I think he's probably going to be the highest owned quarterback this week, and probably for good reason. At that price, I think he's definitely probably the best option outside of some of those higher price guys this week.
So that's definitely a cash game consideration. I don't know if I'd want him in a tournament because he's probably going to be highly owned. He was on the Millionaire Maker last week. So Jake, who's somebody you could step up to and maybe pay a little bit more than Mariota and probably get the similar results?
It's funny you said that because I was going to say on FanDuel for only $400 more, I'm going to pay up to get Cam Newton. I think a lot of people are going to be off Cam Newton. Kansas City is a defense people fear, but is only middle of the road against quarterbacks, middle of the road against running backs, middle of the road against wide receivers. This is a game where Cam can throw 2 touchdowns and find a rushing score of his own. I really think if you look at it too, maybe there's a chance that they get up early with the fact that it does look like they don't have Jeremy Maclin for the Chiefs, and then you have to worry about Jonathan Stewart capitalizing. But at the same time, we all know Cam Newton half the time ignores Jonathan Stewart, just runs it in for himself, even though he's got 15 concussions. He doesn't care. He just runs it in himself anyway. I will say on DraftKings, because of his price, because he is a very bigger jump on DraftKings, that he's more of a tournament option there. He's actually near the top still in pricing. So I do like him as a better play on FanDuel. If I'm looking at DraftKings and we're looking at Marcus Mariota, I'm just going down the prices. The other person I would probably jump up to that's within his range that I would pay up for is probably Dak. Because of the similarities and the fact that I still think he'd get a rushing touchdown, although I am concerned that he's not going to get the passing touchdowns we've seen of late in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's secondary is the only thing they got going for him right now. Their run game is garbage, and I really think this could be an Ezekiel Elliott-heavy game. So I'm not fully confident in it. But, yeah, again, you asked for somebody in that range. That's probably the only other person. I like Marcus Mariota a lot more on DraftKings than I do on FanDuel.
Yeah, no. I like both the calls. I like Cam Newton this week. I actually love Kelvin Benjamin. We're going to talk about him in a minute. But one player that I think you can get at a ridiculously low ownership is Ben Roethlisberger. A lot of people are making a big deal of what he did last week. Guys, I want you to understand that Ben Roethlisberger, that's what he does on the road. He just sucks. Like, he's awful. If you kind of – yeah, no. Well, if you go through his game logs, you can see that ever since the Week 1 game where he destroyed Washington, he's been awful on the road. Philly, Miami, and then just last week against Baltimore. He's awful on the road. Like, understand, everybody knows Drew Brees' home road splits, but nobody seems to understand how bad Ben Roethlisberger is on the road. It's actually a lot worse than Drew Brees. At home this year, Roethlisberger's totals, 259-3, 305, 380-4. Ben Roethlisberger, he's going to be going against a Dallas defense that's without Morris Claiborne. They don't have Barry Church either. So they're missing two very, very important parts of their secondary. Claiborne has been really like a shutdown corner this year. So they essentially don't have anybody to cover Antonio Brown. Like Brandon Carr, is that who you're going to stick on Antonio Brown? They're going to have to box him. Sammy Coates can beat him deep. There's so many ways to beat the Dallas defense without Morris Claiborne and Barry Church. I love Ben Roethlisberger this week. And the thing is, he's 6,800. So the game last week, it doesn't fit in what his performance was. That's why people are like really down on him. Him at home, you're never going to get him at home with this low of ownership, considering the other prices here. Even Carson Palmer, you could talk about. Is there anybody else you guys really wanted to touch on at the quarterback position?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in real quick, Joe, because there is one on DraftKings, $100 more. And I'm actually ticked off about the Talib thing because I didn't think anybody else was really going to be on him because everybody sees, oh, it's Denver, let's stay away. But you talked about the home numbers, and that's why I wanted to jump in. Drew Brees at home is averaging 380-3. He is a monster. You just talked about it. And this is actually why I'm with you for this Ben Roethlisberger thing. I hate the fact that everybody says, oh, Drew Brees isn't good on the road. No, he's still great on the road. He's just a fantasy god at home. That's the difference. So I had Drew Brees in a lot of my lineups. I'm not going to take him out of many because I do think there will be a higher percentage ownership now with the news of Talib. That being said, one of my favorite players, as you well know, Mike, and anybody who followed me on Twitter this year has seen, Michael Thomas. I love the fit. I love the production. I think he's the new Marcus Colston for this team. So I've paired them in a lot of lineups. And like I said, I think a few more people are going to be on him now, but I still don't think there's going to be enough where people are just going to automatically. You're uninitiated or not learned fantasy owners are just going to stay away from because of the Broncos matchup.
Oh yeah, I like the Brees call quite a bit, kind of for those reasons, especially with the secondary. But I don't tend to really worry about ownership too much at quarterback anyway. It's one of those positions that's relatively flat anyway, and kind of that same line of thinking with the Denver defense. I really like Tom Brady this week if you're going to pay all the way up against Seattle. Seattle's on a short week, and they're going to be a home favorite this week in New England. So I really like that spot for Tom Brady. I think you can pair him with Gronk this week in tournaments. Don't necessarily pay up for Gronk too often, but I think this is a week that you can do it. I really like Tom Brady as a home favorite. His touchdown projection this week, I think, is as high as probably any quarterback. And I don't know if a lot of people are going to pay all the way up this week with some of those options that we have talked about. I think Ben Roethlisberger is a fantastic play also, but Tom Brady is, if I was to name another guy, kind of not a lot of people are going to click him against Seattle, just for that kind of that same reason that people aren't going to play Drew Brees in tournaments.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I want to play Brady, but I feel like this is a game where it could just totally shock everybody and they could run the ball. Like LeGarrette Blount could score 2 touchdowns. And speaking of which, I want to so right before we came on, guys, the news broke that Kristen Michael popped up on the injury report with a hamstring injury. Like, now he's officially questionable for Sunday night's game. So here's a question for you. Let's just go to the running backs then right now. Is it a viable option to play LeGarrette Blount in the lineup and then go to CJ Prosise if Kristen Michael misses this game?
I already like CJ Prosise for this matchup because the one thing, this is something else where perception is going to skew what people do is they're going to see the Patriots defense. They're going to be, oh, you know, they're pretty good on defense every single year, and they are pretty good against the run. The thing is they're good against stopping the straight run. They're not good at stopping pass-catching running backs. They're actually inside the top 5 and top 10 for yards and touchdowns allowed to pass-catching running backs. So I already like CJ Prosise more for seasonal, and this is what I was telling people. If you're desperate and you really need an RB2 this week, especially in PPR, CJ Prosise was a good play. If Kristen Michael is out, here's the thing. What do we know about the Patriots defense and Belichick? They stop the best players. Well, I really think they're going into this game, and whether or not this just happens today, they're not going to change their game plan. Their game plan was either to stop Graham or Doug Baldwin, or stop just Graham and let Malcolm Butler take care of Doug Baldwin. So the option there was already going to be for CJ Prosise. I think he's almost a must in cash if there is no Kristen Michael.
3,900, I like it. But that's the thing. Being a Sunday night game, that's why it's like you have to have someone else in there to pivot off of if Kristen Michael plays. That's the only – like if it was like a noon game, abso-friggin-lutely, I would love that idea. And that – I want to talk about that because this is a weird week. So talking about lineup construction this week, I'm sure you guys agree with me. It's a week where people are paying up for David Johnson. And if you're not playing David Johnson this week, you're doing it wrong. Like, don't play DFS this week if you don't want to play David Johnson. And I know a lot of people talk about ownership, but in the end, you have to have the points. And nobody – I mean, I guess you can make the argument that Le'Veon Bell might have a similar ceiling, but you play David Johnson. But what's some of the cheaper running backs? Like, I'm struggling, man. If Doug Martin's – it is. If Doug Martin's out, Peyton Barber becomes, I guess, like an option in cash. If Carlos Hyde is out, Duan Harris comes an option in cash. Do you guys have somebody that doesn't rely on an injury that could like just be like a cheap cash game play? And please don't tell me Darren Sproles.
Why are you so down on Darren Sproles?
What's wrong with Darren Sproles on DraftKings, man?
I think before this Christine Michael news, I think that Sproles is probably the best player on the board as far as like a lower priced option this week. I think they've made it pretty clear that they're going to give him the ball. Just his snaps alone in the last couple of games have been just insane. The only time that Matthews is on the field is when he scores touchdowns. And
so,
go ahead.
I want to argue with you on this one. The reason I say I want to do that is because we have it programmed in our head that Darren Sproles is a pass catcher. We have it programmed. That's just the way it is. When he was in New Orleans, when he was in San Diego, even when he started in Philly, he was a pass catcher. This year, there's just one game where he's gone over 24 receiving yards. And that was the game against Pittsburgh. And if you guys recall where he got a lot of his yards from, it was like a 60-yard touchdown. It was a broken play where Carson Wentz scrambled, and it was a beautiful pass. And Sproles did work after the catch. Like, my issue here, I know Ryan Matthews has only played 8 snaps each of the last 2 weeks, which is just stupid. Why didn't they trade him? Why didn't they cut him? I don't get it. But Darren Sproles, there's been just one game where he's top 15 DraftKings points this year. I just don't know. I guess I just don't trust them to stay with Sproles. Like if you were to tell me he's locked in for 16 touches in this game, I'd probably be like, okay, yeah, we could play him. But I don't really trust Doug Peterson to keep playing him. I don't know if I'm nuts. And that's why, like, cash, I want to be like guaranteed this work. That's why I'm trying to figure this all out, man. That's why I want to.
That's the thing. Is like if you're looking at other people and you want guaranteed work and you're going cheap, the guaranteed work is like Rob Kelly against the Vikings, really. And the way that you beat the Vikings is with the pass catching running back. I actually like Chris Thompson more than I like Rob Kelly just for this week. If you're talking PPR, and that's the thing is you want to go cheap this week, you're going to have a tough time. This is one of those weeks where I've been telling people I'm paying up at running back, and I suggest doing the same. But here's a little nugget for you, Mike. I don't know if it makes you feel better about Darren Sproles when he played Pee Wee football. They outlawed the sweep play because he literally scored on every single sweep.
I believe it. He his top half of his body doesn't move. His legs just go like this. And like if you ever watch Darren Sproles run, watch. And like the top half of his body doesn't move at all. It's kind of crazy.
It's like the old Bugs Bunny cartoons where they like ran in place before they got started and then they just shoot them off. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. What about Chris Ivory, guys? Joe, what do you think about Chris Ivory? Tell me that he could be played in cash.
Yeah, I don't know if he's necessarily a cash play for me, but I mean, Chris Ivory, it's kind of a similar situation. Like at that price, I think I'd rather go up a little bit towards like a Sproles if I am going to go that way. I think that their range of outcomes is pretty similar, but I just like the kind of the involvement that Sproles is going to have on every down, even on special teams. And Chris Ivory, I think that is still relatively a 2-down back. I'm not too excited about him. His price is intriguing, but this week just seems like a week to pay up at running back. There's so many good players that are in great spots up top that if you do have to go down a little bit at some point, it's probably going to be at wide receiver for me.
All right, so
I do like Chris Ivory more on FanDuel when you're not worried so much. Right. It's half point PPR, but I mean it's still full PPR. But the thing that is you do run against the Texans. That's the one way to beat them. And I think that maybe this is a game where they see what Ivory did last week and the touchdown he should have had, and they rely on the run game a little bit more and don't ask Bortles to try and beat one of the best pass secondaries in the league. So hopefully I can see that, but I'm kind of with Joe here. I think my exposure would still be pretty low.
All right, so you guys burst my bubble on that one. So let's talk about some running backs that we'll pay up for then. Like, so if we're going to pay up for David Johnson, and if you want to pay up for another one, like me personally, I'd probably go all the way up to Le'Veon Bell.
You can go first on this one, Joe. I
Sure.
keep jumping up first. I feel like I can go first.
We're on a lot of the same plays, though. I really like Melvin Gordon this week. Up top, if you're not going to go up to Le'Veon Bell, he is a little bit more expensive on FanDuel, I think $200 more than Le'Veon Bell is. But on DraftKings, he's quite a bit cheaper. And this guy has 50 red zone targets on the year, or touches on the year. Like, it's just insane the type of red zone involvement he's been getting. He's a home favorite on a team that is going to score points. And I just think that even in this matchup against Miami, I think that Melvin Gordon's just been this guy that's just been trolling the DFS community this year just because he hasn't necessarily been super efficient, but the workload that he's gotten and the involvement that he's gotten in the red zone, it makes him a play, definitely, and he is involved in the passing game as well. So it is just not a lot of negatives for this guy. He's breaking tackles better this year, obviously, than last year, and the fact that his touchdown equity is just so high, I think that savings.
To say he's actually breaking tackles this year.
Right.
It's really,
yeah,
really the
so
difference.
That's actually saying something. I think that just his touchdown equity in general, if you are going to pivot off of David Johnson or even just pair him with another high-end option, I do really like Melvin Gordon this week.
Jake, who you got up top? If you're paying up, are you on board with Le'Veon Bell and Melvin Gordon?
I like Le'Veon Bell. I like Melvin Gordon. I like Jay Ajayi. The one I'm actually looking at, though, for more tournament, because I think a lot of people are going to now fade him with the news of Derrick Henry, is DeMarco Murray. And they're going to also fade him because they see Green Bay and they're afraid of the Green Bay run defense. But what did Ezekiel Elliott do to this run defense? If you look at the majority of running backs that they've stopped this year have been junk. They played very well. Don't get me wrong. They're still one of the better run units in the league. But DeMarco Murray can also do a lot of damage in the passing game, as we all well know. And I think that his ownership percentage was going to be higher before this Derrick Henry news came out, because we all assumed Henry was out for 3 to 4 weeks. So I'm looking at that more so for tournament and cash games. Like I said, I like all those plays. I keep looking, and I got to go with Ezekiel Elliott. I said it before with Dak Prescott. I think they just want to try and limit what they asked Dak to do in Pittsburgh on the road. This team has Super Bowl aspirations, and Ezekiel Elliott against this run defense or lack thereof for what the Steelers bring, I think this could be a 152 touchdown game for Ezekiel.
I think Ezekiel's going to have to do more in the passing game this week because Pittsburgh, like Cam Hayward, makes that defense a completely different defense. He missed 2 weeks, and in those 2 weeks, they allowed the monster games. That was the Ajayi 200-yard game, and then Blunt had 127 yards, 2 touchdowns the next week. With Cam Hayward on the defensive line, they're allowing just 3.4 yards per carry in those games. My issue with Zeke this week is that he needs to be used more in the passing game, and he can do it because he's been starting to get more involved, because I think Pittsburgh stomps them. I think Pittsburgh puts up tons of points, and
Really?
I think you could stack this game. I think you could stack. I was looking at it. I'm having a hard time deciding, and I guess we can go into the wide receivers a little bit now. I'm having a hard time deciding if I want to stack this game, if you go Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown, or you do Roethlisberger, Le'Veon Bell, and Eli Rogers. Because
what's wrong with Coates, man?
He's bad.
He's not bad. He just doesn't have hands. That's the problem.
Yeah,
He kind of needs those.
That's a problem.
Yeah. What do you guys think of Eli Rogers? Am I the only one here on Eli Rogers?
No, I am too. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jake. No, I took the last one. You got it.
All right. My problem with Eli Rogers is recency bias and the fact that everybody's going to be on him for after last week. And his price point still appealing. I just see similar options in his range where I don't mind the play at all. I'm not telling you you're crazy or you shouldn't do it. I just have steered clear of him, and maybe I'm overthinking it. But I just look at his price range, and there's other names that pop out to me that I like as much or even more. And I just haven't ended up with him in any of my lineups. And actually, if I know, again, this might be overthinking too, but if I'm going to steer away from this, if I'm going to pivot off of it, I do stay in this game and go with Sammy Coates. I know his hands are super inconsistent, but this is the same thing earlier this year. This is the reason why I didn't like Will Fuller. Hands are inconsistent, but we know the upside of Sammy Coates and Will Fuller if they can just catch 5 passes, maybe even 6. Heck, they could catch 3 passes and get you the 130 yards and a touchdown.
So
yep,
the problem with Coates, so he's seen what is it, 10 targets over the last 2 weeks, and he has like one catch for like 4 yards. I think that's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, he got throw out last week though. I mean, how many passes does Ben throw?
Well, he dropped. Well, here's the reason that you could like Coates, because they don't have an option this week because Darius Hayward-Bay's out, and you also have Marcus Wheaton's going to be out for this game too. So he has to play and almost like play every single snap. That's why I like Eli Rogers too, because if you go and you look at what Dallas has allowed to slot wide receivers, Jordan Matthews dominated them the other week for 11 catches. Sterling Shepard, Jamison Crowder, Jeremy Curley, Jordan Matthews, Randall Cobb, they all scored against Dallas. And that's before they had to worry about a number 1 wide receiver like Antonio Brown. Eli Rogers hasn't played a game with Ben Roethlisberger at home this year where he's seen more than 2 targets. There was only one game he played with him at home, and Roethlisberger threw the ball 27 times. I think that you can make the argument for Coates. I think Coates should have exposure. If you're setting like a lot of DFS tournament lineups, I think you should have some exposure. Maybe I would say 5% exposure to Coates.
Okay.
So if you're setting 20 lineups, just 1. I don't believe in Sammy Coates.
I'd probably go 15%.
15%. All right. So who's some other wide? So Jake, you said you like Tyrell Williams. Joe, who you like at wide receiver this week?
I'm curious what you guys think of kind of in that lower price range. J.J. Nelson, he's at 4,200 on DraftKings, and John Brown dealing with that sickle cell issue that's been affecting his hamstrings, and it's kind of more of just a leverage play, if anything, off of David Johnson. I think that the one thing that could go wrong in this game is what happens if Carson Palmer throws a couple touchdowns and then they're so far ahead that, maybe David's still going to get some volume. I'm not trying to say that at all, but I think that one thing that could cap his upside is if he throws a few touchdowns, and I think one could easily go to J.J. Nelson. Just they've made it pretty clear that he's going to be a starting wide receiver for them, and I do like Fitz a lot this week anyway, but I think it's kind of a lower price guy. I do really like J.J. Nelson kind of in that range.
So would you rather play John Brown or J.J. Nelson?
J.J. Nelson for sure.
Really?
I would.
I don't know why I'm like the only person in the world that doesn't like J.J. Nelson, just because like his average depth of target is 19 yards down the field. Like they lost their left tackle before the bye, Jared Veldheer. He's a big dude. Like he's a mauling dude. And their offensive line hadn't been great before that. I think Carson Palmer had been sacked 12 times. But I think Palmer's an interesting one to stack with Fitzgerald. I don't know if that's the problem, is I don't know if Fitzgerald offers the upside for a tournament. And I don't like J.J. Nelson. I feel like it's like a worse version of Sammy Coates, just because Coates is at least a decent size wide receiver. Nelson's just 5'10", 160. So he relies on the big play, and that's where my issue is with him. How do you guys feel about Kelvin Benjamin? Like that's my dude this week. I love Kelvin Benjamin.
Is he going to catch a touchdown? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. That's exactly what I'm saying. No, it's the first time in his career he's gone 4 games without scoring a touchdown. He's had 40 targets in his last 5 games, and that's significant because those last 5 games have come after the Minnesota game where Cam Newton didn't get him a single catch. And Cam Newton said that's never going to happen again. The reason I like him so much, though, is because Kansas City, they've allowed 13 passing touchdowns in their last 5 games. He's going to see Phillip Gaines an awful lot, and Gaines is not very good. Marcus Peters takes a lot of risks. On top of that, Kansas City stops tight ends. Like they've only allowed 4 tight end touchdowns in the last 2 years. So I think Greg Olsen is kind of like a fade this week. Like, I mean, I don't think people are paying up to get Greg Olsen this week. But I do like Jordan Matthews a lot. Another wide receiver that I like a lot is Alshon Jeffrey. I worry about Jay Cutler's upside because the Bears under John Fox. So this is the stat I found. So under John Fox, Jay Cutler has thrown for 281 yards or more just twice. He's thrown 3 touchdowns just once. He's just like he almost doesn't have the upside. John Fox doesn't want him to throw the ball very much. But the matchup this week against Tampa, it kind of calls for it. Like Vernon Hargreaves has been destroyed the last 2 weeks by Julio Jones and Amari Cooper. Jake, what do you think about Alshon Jeffrey?
I'm a big fan of Alshon Jeffrey this week. I actually think his price, and if you talk about the production he could have with Jay Cutler, a quarterback, I think he deserves to be near that upper crust of wide receivers. Not in the $9,000, upper $8,000 range, but I think his price is definitely dampened by it's slow to react, and that's understandable as he's been quiet to this point, kind of a disappointment. And you mentioned the fact of what had happened with Cooper and Julio Jones, but Michael Crabtree went off in that game too for the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
So just the fact that defense is very beatable. But the one that I like, and this sticks too, because this is just like before where 3 days ago, this was more of a contrarian pick than what we get for news today, but no true font. I already like Jordan Matthews at his price. I was already on board with Jordan Matthews. I was looking at the fact that the Falcons give up 43.8 fantasy points per game in PPR scoring, and I looked at it, and I looked at his history so far this year. Matthews would have topped 2 times his value of that price, 4 times this year and 3 times twice already. And it was with the thought that he plays slot flanker. He avoids people like Trufant often, and people like Josh Norman, because similar to Michael Thomas and Marcus Colston before him, the slot flanker role, they're not on the outside as much as most receivers are. So you don't have to worry about guys sticking to them for shadowing for that purposes. But now Trufant's out, so people are going to start coming back on board with Jordan Matthews. There's 2 picks I had that look so much better for contrarian purposes 3 days ago.
There's a lot of wide receivers in that range, though, so I don't know if he's going to be like I don't know if he's going to be heavily owned, but I got an even better stat for you, Jake. I love Jordan Matthews as well, and Brian Poole, he is the slot cornerback for the Falcons. In any game where he's seen 6 targets, any wide receiver that's seen 6 targets against him in a game, they've scored a touchdown. We know Jordan Matthews is going to see 6 targets, right? Like so, Joe.
And over the last 3 games, number 1 wide receivers, 22 receptions, 384 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
There you go. That's what I'm saying. Jordan Matthews, man. Like, and Carson Wentz has started to have some more success when targeting him. So, Joe, what about you? What do you like at wide receiver?
Yeah, I love both of those calls for the reasons that you guys talked about. Obviously, Jeffrey's going to be the chalk this week, I think, just playing against Tampa Bay and that funnel defense. I think he's clearly mispriced. Another guy I like, there's kind of quite a few guys in this range that I think are in play. Stephon Diggs, I think we're just talking about guys that don't get shadow, kind of avoid that. I think he's going to avoid Norman just because he's been getting kind of those short passes the last week or so. He had 14 targets last week, and a lot of them were a really low ADOT. So I think Diggs could have a big week, just kind of another high target volume. I'm not sure how much touchdown equity he does have, but at 6,200, he's another guy that I really like, especially on DraftKings. I think that you can really kind of look at that, and I think that his target volume, and he's a road underdog, so I think they are going to have to throw a bit more than people think in this game, and I think they're going to be these short passes to Diggs.
It was really telling too because it was their first week without Norv Turner, and his average depth of target was 3. It was 3 yards. That's like worse than Golden Tate last year in Jim Bob Cooter's offense. So
it's almost like a Jarvis Landry type game, and I think that's kind of almost his floor. And people don't really know what to do with this. New offensive coordinators in general, sometimes it takes a couple of weeks for teams to kind of adjust, and I think that's something that could be happening with Diggs, and at least a couple more weeks kind of take advantage of it.
Mike, when you say that name, you can't say it that casually.
You say what, Jim Bob Cooter?
Jim Bob Cooter!
I can't do it like that. I don't have the I don't have the twang to say it. So let's just say that someone wants to pay up at running back. Let's talk about some cheap wide receivers outside of my Eli Rogers love. I think Mohamed Sanu is in play.
Yeah, I think so as well. I'm looking at Kansas City. No Jeremy Maclin.
I don't know. I can't trust Tyreek Hill, man. I don't know.
Albert Wilson. Albert Wilson.
Not talking about Albert Wilson either.
Chris Conley.
3,500 for Chris Conley. I'm taking. Hey, he will be in 5% of my lineups.
I don't like hate the call. I can't say I hate it. There's only 2 wide receivers that have more yards than him with 0 touchdowns. So he's definitely due for a touchdown here or there. Alex Smith against Carolina, it's like the best matchup that he could ask for. So I mean, I don't hate it, but I'm not saying like I don't think he's definitely not a cash option.
No, it's like I don't think he's the worst cash out. $3,500. It's the bottom pricing. But Tyreek Hill, I think a lot of people are going to be on Tyreek Hill. He does have the best matchup of all of them, though, out of the slot, as long as they keep him in the slot, which I'm assuming they will because they'll put Albert Wilson on the outside with Chris Conley. So that's what I'm assuming. But I just think there's going to be a lot of people on Hill where I agree with you. Any of these guys is a pure tournament play, and maybe cash, maybe. And it would be, like I said, that would be a very low ownership percentage in cash for myself. That being said, I think there's going to be such a high ownership of people going to Tyreek Hill instead of Chris Conley that if I'm going tournament, I'm going Conley.
Yeah. No, and then the reason I wanted to talk about the lower price ones, and Joe, I'm going to ask you for yours in a second. The reason I wanted to is because, like I said, if somebody wants to go full contrarian, they want to pay up, for 2 top-tier running backs. If they want to get David Johnson, they want to get Bell. Let's say they want to pay up to get, somebody like Brady, somebody like Roethlisberger. I probably want like one big-name wide receiver in my lineup. Like I might sneak Antonio Brown in there. But Joe, who's somebody down the list that you like? Because like honestly, there's a lot of wide receivers in this range that I like. Whereas last week it was awful.
Yeah, it's actually not too bad. Kind of in that same range. I think we touched on him slightly earlier, but Dontrell Inman. Yeah, I mean, I like him a lot more, I think, in cash games and at this like kind of lower tier, just for the fact that he's already been out snapping the other receivers on this team for quite a few weeks now. And I think with Benjamin out, he's going to see enough targets to hit value pretty easily at 3,400. So I really like Inman in this game for sure at the lower tier. I don't mind even Marquise Lee at 3,900, especially if Hearns and Walters are both out. And I know I just think that it's going to be maybe a low scoring game, but if there's another guy kind of in this range that I like, I'm definitely looking at Lee as well.
That could be the wreck of quarterback play, that one game. Brock versus Blake. Come on.
Oh, God, that's awful.
Yeah.
Like both running backs.
I'm going to give one more who is actually one of my favorite, and I hate to put this one out there too because it's like Tyree. You pretty much are figuring out what wide receivers I'm playing this week. But Rashard Matthews, the biggest thing was last year when he came over from Miami. I talked about it in an article in the offseason when I assumed they signed him to be their number 1 wide receiver because they went after him early. It wasn't like it was the third week of the offseason and it was like, I guess we'll take Rashard Matthews. They went after him, and I thought he was going to be their number 1. He finally is being their number 1, but what I liked about him, top 10 in fantasy points per target in standard and PPR last year. The last 5 games, he's over 2 points, and that's standard, 2.07 per target. He's back to it. The targets have been inconsistent, but he's been remarkably effective on those targets and catching almost 80% of his passes. So I love Rashard Matthews for the fact that he's finally getting some chemistry with Mariota.
And he's so cheap. Like, I couldn't believe how cheap he was. Like, when I saw his name, I was like, that's not the right Rashard Matthews, is it? Because
they put Ryan Matthews at wide receiver or something.
He's been, yeah, exactly. Like, it was just something like I double-taked it because, like, Rashard Matthews has been pretty legit. He's going to be going up against Dimitri Goodson this week. Who? Right. Who? That guy has only seen 11 targets in coverage. He's allowed 9 catches for 135 yards and a touchdown. So I do like that call. And the thing is Green Bay. The reason I'm really taken aback by the over/under that game. What is it, Joe? 49?
Yeah, it's one of the higher ones.
Well, that's the thing. I think that game should have an over/under of like 51, 52 because Green Bay has allowed at least 30 points in 3 of their last 4 games. The only game where they didn't allow at least 30 points to the opponent was against the Bears. You guys remember who was playing for the Bears, right? Matt Barkley.
Matt Barkley. I was looking up the over/under because I thought it was different. I thought it went up. It's at 49.5 now. It started at 48. So apparently Vegas is catching on.
Well, yeah, it's sneaking up. Like, that game should be a shootout. The only reason I don't love Mariota in a tournament is because I do like DeMarco Murray. I think you could play both DeMarco Murray and Marcus Mariota in cash.
And Rashard Matthews, just do it.
Oh, you can. You can do a game stack in that one, 100%. We're just gonna give our tight ends real quick, and then we're gonna make a lineup. The tight end that I want to talk that I'm playing, Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz is like 100%. 3,700, 12 targets the last 2 weeks. He's caught every single one of them. On the year, he's catching 89% of his passes. So all he's got to do is see like 6 targets to make value. And they've already talked about it in Philly that they really, really want to get him more involved, not over the middle of the field only. They want to get him more involved with the red zone. And if you look at Atlanta, what they've allowed to tight ends this year, any tight end who has seen at least 2 targets against Atlanta, these are their point totals: 17, 26.9, 19.6, 14.9, 8.8, and 15.3. Zach Ertz is a fantastic play. I like him in cash. I like him in tournaments. What about you guys?
I'll let you go first. I have a feeling we might. You already eliminated one of mine, so let's see if you can get both of them knocked off the board, Joe.
Who was the first one?
My other one was Zach Ertz, so we'll see if you knock out the second one.
Yeah, he was on the list as well, but I'm gonna go with a guy basically at that same price point, Zach Miller.
There you go. I'm done.
We're working on the same list here.
Yeah.
No, Zach Miller. I mean, I think that since Alshon Jeffrey is going to be so highly owned, he'll be a great leverage play. But I think you can even double stack both of those guys in this game. I think just in general, the touchdown equity that Miller has had, his price is just so low. I'm just kind of like confused by it, if anything. So I think that he's got a 23.24% target share in the last 4 games, which is pretty high, a lot higher than some of these other tight ends in this range. And I just think that that's a really good game to target and more of a leverage play, if anything, in tournaments.
No, I like it. Cam Meredith has only seen 4 targets the last 2 games, so he's kind of being phased out. So I like Zach Miller as well. So I think we're all on the same page here. So Jake, do we need to talk about another tight end or no?
No, he took both my tight ends. So that was pretty much it. That's both ones I wrote up about this week. And the biggest thing about Zach Miller, I said, especially on DraftKings, the guy's averaging 3.4 times his value price at $3,600. Averaging. It's just I don't understand how he's only $3,600.
No, neither do I. I understand why Ertz is so cheap, and I don't think his ownership is going to be crazy high just because he's still Zach Ertz, and a lot of people have been let down by him. Like,
well,
a lot of people,
coach is still Doug Peterson. What a surprise that the guy from Andy Reid's mold is killing the value of a tight end. What a surprise.
Well, fortunately for us, they have to throw the ball this week because the Falcons put up points on every single team they play. And honestly, so we'll talk about it after this because we got to do this lineup. So. All right, so we're going to do a DraftKings lineup. This is a tournament lineup, so if you guys want to go along with us, you can. I want someone to play this lineup, though, every week, and I want to know how.
I'm going to play mine. Well, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I shouldn't say what I'm going to play.
No, that's what I'm saying. So what we're going to do is we're each going to pick a player. We're going to go through it, and we're each going to have 3 players in it. So.
We're going to do it like that? Okay, good. I thought we were going to throw my entire lineup, so good. We don't have to throw that out.
No, I'm not going to make you give away your lineup. This is going to be our lineup. We're just going to keep track of it to see how we do.
Okay.
All right, so I'm not going to go first. I'm going to let one of you guys go first. Joe, go ahead. I want you to take a stab, pick whatever position you want, and then we kind of have to build around what you do.
Yeah, let's just get it out of the way. David Johnson.
Yeah, that's the must.
This is a tournament, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Jake, you're up, dude, and don't screw me on this one.
I'm not, but Tyrell Williams. You already knew that was coming.
Yeah, I'm good with it. I want to play Ben Roethlisberger so bad. Yeah, let's do it. I want low ownership. It's tournament. Let's go. Roethlisberger.
Well, I can't go 2 really high-owned guys in a row, but let's go Zach Miller at tight end, kind of differentiate a little bit off Alshon.
Yes.
Hold on. I'm playing catch-up over here to make sure because I gotta play with the pricing. I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just like listening and going along with it. And just, All right. So we got Roethlisberger, David Johnson, Tyrell, and Zach Miller.
Yeah, that's where we're at now.
You know what? I'm going to make it easy on you guys. I'm going to get the defense out of the way so we can save that money because my favorite play, and we'll see. I'll see if you guys agree, but somebody's offensive line is garbage, and somebody's defensive line has been getting out of the quarterback quite a bit lately.
The Rams.
The Redskins at 3,000. I don't think a lot of people are going to be on them. I think they are a terrific play for sacks and interceptions this week.
Well, it's fine with me.
Contrarian for sure.
It is contrarian. That's why I like it. Yeah, because I like the Rams. I even like if you want to go dirt cheap, you can go down to the Jaguars against Houston.
It is
All right.
rocks. That's true.
So since we have Roethlisberger and we've already used a couple high-priced options, I'm putting Eli Rogers in, man.
Ooh.
You jumped ahead. Wasn't it Joe's pick?
Oh, shit. Oh,
No, well, you go ahead. You take Eli.
oh wait, no, Jake, you had the defense, so it was my pick. I didn't screw anybody up.
Yeah, no, I think it was your pick.
Okay.
So we can still spend up a little bit. We got about 6,300 per player.
Right.
So let's go DeMarco Murray at running back.
All right.
Well, that ruins one of my wide receiver picks.
Well, you could still take. You could take Jordan Matthews. You could take.
I don't want to take Rashard
Kelvin.
DeMarco. Let me see. I'm plugging in DeMarco, seeing what the price is that we got left going on over here.
About $6K per guy.
So we could do. You could do Kelvin Benjamin. You could do Alshon.
We could do Jordan Matthews and leave us at 62. What does that leave us at flex?
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, we got to look. It's like a gross range.
That range is all right. If you go Jordan Matthews. We can go Diggs, we go Michael Thomas.
Nope. Yes.
I don't like Diggs in tournament though, because we're playing the Redskins.
Michael Thomas.
Oh, that's true.
He likes all my tweets.
I can't. Well, hold on. I'm not like against Michael Thomas.
Are we locking in Matthews here?
We could change him out if we need flexibility. That's where I'll go for now. But if we find look, price up. Let's see what we got above him. If there's anybody that you're really on. Mike?
So 62. So Randall Cobb, I love if we can get $200 somewhere.
I mean, Alshon's at 66.
We didn't even talk about Randall Cobb, dude. He's going to be matched up against Bryce McCain.
Randall Cobb's also, does he play the whole game?
There's so many mouths to feed right there. I don't know. That's a tough situation in general. I
would like to get up to Alshon if we could, or Kelvin, but that's 4 and 600.
No. Put Alshon in. That's how you work a lot up, man. We could work together and see what we drop down to. Fuller, Hyde, Ingram against Denver. People are going to be afraid of that. Todd Gurley at 53.
Oh, God. He's banged up right now, isn't he?
He is. If he wasn't, I would actually like it.
He got cleared today. He returned to practice today.
Okay.
What?
Yeah, this is a gross range. I don't mind Ingram. A little bit worried about Hightower. Not necessarily. I just think it's just going to be split carries.
Oh, wait, we have Alshon and Zach Miller. Are we playing 2 Bears in this lineup?
True.
A little bit definitely contrarian. Heck, put Jordan.
Let's put Jordan Matthews back in the wide receiver slot and then work from there. I like Jordan Matthews.
Yeah, I like what to do. A real dad.
So it's 62.
Go Diggs, but yeah, like you said, we're playing Washington defense. We can just lock in Michael Thomas there, I think.
I just don't think so. Here's the deal. The reason that I'm not like in love with Thomas, I could be okay with Thomas and cash. But in tournaments, man, they've only allowed 2 wide receiver touchdowns all year, and it was like on 2 amazing catches. If you guys remember in week 1, Kelvin Benjamin, and then Travis Benjamin made a circus catch.
Yeah, Michael Thomas is amazing. Michael Thomas goes for 120 touchdown this week. I'm going to call you up on Monday.
All right. Oh, no, we'll put Michael Thomas in there. We'll do it.
No, it's fine. No, let's look what else. Hey, dropped it. What was the defense?
I don't like anything else in this range, though.
Redskins defense, 3K.
I was seeing if there's anything cheaper at defense.
I'm not opposed to the Jaguars defense, guys. Like against Houston, I think they're at least a high floor option.
Well, let's look at some of the home favorites because there's a couple up there that are a little bit cheaper. You go to Chargers defense.
That only saves you 100, though. I looked at that. That's
true.
Yeah. If you put the Jaguars in, you get to Brandon Marshall, Gronk, Emmanuel Sanders, Devontae Freeman, Kelvin Benjamin.
Wow. Devonta Freeman's not a bad one either.
Spencer Ware. Alshon Jeffrey.
So
that's somebody we haven't talked about. Nobody's talking about Spencer Ware.
I don't like him, man.
Hold
on a second. I love Spencer Ware. I love him to death. Like me and Joe are like obsessed with Spencer Ware, as a matter of fact. But I just don't like his matchup at all.
Okay, I figured, but that's again, tournament, no ownership.
So here's what I'm going to do. Let's go down to the Jaguars at defense, and you guys pick a flex. I'm out of this one. You guys pick a flex, and then we're going to lock it in.
What does that leave us at?
We're at 6,900.
Okay, the other guy we didn't mention, Brandon Marshall. I mean, he's kind of burned some people this year, so I think his ownership could be lower. Obviously, his quarterback situation is absolutely horrendous, but his
Trumaine
touchdown
Johnson's back too.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, his touchdown upside though is there. I mean, he's gonna have a big game sooner or later. I do like Marshall in that range, but I do like Freeman as well. That's a good call.
Because Coleman's out.
I do like the appeal of going against the Saints, though. We do have both Denver wide receivers here.
Sanders, I think, is a phenomenal play this week.
So do I.
I told you guys it's up to you. If you want to play Sanders, we'll put it in there.
We're talking it out, man.
I'm just like sitting back and just waiting because I want to see how this does.
All right, but we'll do it this way. You left it in our hands. I'm going to leave the final decision up to Joe. Chalk with Jeffrey or Emmanuel Sanders against the Saints.
Let's go Emmanuel Sanders. I do really like him this week. It's just that offense is so concentrated in general that I think both those guys are in play. The red zone targets that Emmanuel Sanders is seeing have just been insane. His just market share in general, it might have, I don't know. I think that's kind of a lower owned play this week, kind of in that range that could be big for us. So yeah, let's go Sanders there.
I was going to just say
the most contrarian lineup ever.
Yeah, as a side point, at running back, we never talked about him, but I actually threw Booker in a couple lineups.
I don't dislike Booker at all. I think Booker's fine. Like
everybody thinks that
his price
stuff. His price is
very high.
Yeah.
That's the problem. That's the problem.
I like him. I think that he could be low owned, but some of the guys around him, I think I like everyone else around him.
That's the problem. That's why I think nobody's going to own Devontae Booker this week. I wouldn't be surprised if his ownership percentage is 3%.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be. Yeah, with how much he costs, no way. No way.
If Bibbs doesn't kind of have that huge run, I think that Booker could be a guy that people are all over this week against the Saints. He's in a phenomenal. I think this matchup is great. So, yeah, I don't mind Booker kind of as a lower owned play.
If you want to differentiate yourself in a David Johnson lineup, just for people in general, like listening, Booker is a way to go because if people are dropping down and doing what we're talking about with the Murrays of the world and stuff like that, nobody out there I can see going David Johnson, Devontae Booker. I don't think anybody's going to be putting that lineup out there.
I don't think anybody has this lineup. I'm just going to say this right now. I don't think anybody has this lineup.
Well, that's because you're all over Eli Rogers. That's why.
I love me some Eli Rogers. I love him. Ben's got to throw to somebody, and Sammy Coates is not very good.
He's good. His hands just stink.
Man, I can't wait. Somebody play this lineup. Please play it. Let me know if you win some money.
Oh, wait, that's right. You're Arizona. You can't play it.
Yeah, I suck.
We can't even make a FanDuel lineup right now, which sucks.
No, we can't.
We could tell you the prices.
No, actually, it's funny because Michael Rathburn was sending me just so I could use it for my own personal research. He was sending me spreadsheets to look
the
up
pricing.
Yeah, so I was able to look at it. But
I was gonna do like this and be like, here, you can pick the players. How about?
That's funny. No, maybe next week. Maybe next week that's something we'll do. But guys, this is a fun first episode. It got better as we went on. We're gonna get chemistry as the weeks go on. I had a blast. Anything you guys wanted to get out before we kind of get out of here?
I thought it was good for the beginning. You make people just fast forward and get to the end. Seriously, come on, Mike.
Not going to fast forward. No, as the week's going, I promise you, Jake's going to start giving hotter and hotter takes. He's going to start yelling at Joe. Joe's going to get mad, and he's going to yell back at me, and it's just going to be a fun time. It's going to be awesome.
I don't like how many similar plays we had this week, Jake. You got to come out firing a little bit. My feelings won't be hurt, I promise.
No, the problem is we're too smart for our own good. That's what the truth is.
We'll go with
that. There it is. I was waiting for it to come out. There's your genius is showing, Jake. But no, as always, guys, thank you for tuning in. We had a blast with you. Hopefully you did too. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you're able to play make some money this weekend. But we're going to be back here next Friday at the same time, 6:00 Eastern time. And if you guys have any questions in between then, if there's injuries and things like that, if Carlos Hyde is out, I might be talking about Duwan Harris on Sunday morning on Twitch. But until next time, guys, lights out.